Hey everybody, I'm Ashley Banfield and this is Drop Dead Serious. I have a whole lot more to tell you about tonight. And if you've been following the case of Lynette Hooker missing in the Bahamas, every day brings another huge surprise. And today, 2 surprises. First and foremost, the issue of what happened and where did something happen to Lynette is unresolved, but it's becoming perhaps more clear. It is starting to feel very much like Brian Hooker and Lynette Hooker actually made it from the Abaco Inn all the way to their yacht Soulmate.
He had his hands around her throat. Tight. Too tight. She said she couldn't breathe. Said her vision started to narrow, like the room was pulling away from her. And then, he stopped. Just let go. She dropped to the floor, gasping, trying to pull air back into her lungs. And he looked at her, calm, like nothing just happened. And he said something she would never forget. I should have finished it. Thrown you overboard. Silence. She told someone. Not police. Not a stranger. Her best friend. Held on to it, carried it for 2 years, tried to make sense of it, tried to believe it was just anger, just words. But some words don't leave. 2 years later, she's on a boat, open water, night coming in, just the 2 of them. And then, she's gone. No call, no signal, no goodbye, just gone. Her husband says it was an accident, says the water turned, says the waves came up fast, says she slipped, fell, disappeared before he could reach her. That's his story. There's just one problem. No one ever found her. Not her phone. Not her bag. Not a single thing. And the water that night. It was calm. Too calm. So now there's a question sitting where she used to be. What really happened out there? Because the last thing she ever repeated, the one sentence she couldn't shake, it didn't sound like a joke. And it didn't sound like anger. It sounded like a warning. And 2 years later, it came true. But the water doesn't agree.
That there wasn't some catastrophic, she bounced out the back and I couldn't get her, high waves and terrible weather and wind, and oh no, little me. Yeah, it's starting to really feel not only that that didn't happen, but that they made it back to Soulmate. I can't say that for sure, but all of the little spidey arrows are really pointing that way. And today, another couple of pieces of information that seem to be big blinking spidey arrows. Let's start with what several witnesses apparently have now come forward and told authorities.
Now go back with me. Before the water. Before the story. This photo. Look at her. Her name is Lynette Hooker. 55. Not new to boats. Not careless. She grew up around water. Lakes, docks, long days outside. The kind of person who knows what a shift in wind feels like before it hits your skin. This isn't someone who panics out there. This is someone who's comfortable. She and her husband had been doing this for years. Sailing. Living on the water. Moving from place to place like it was second nature. 25 years married. That's not new love. That's history. Habits. Patterns. You learn a person after that long. You learn how they move, how they think, how they react. Which is why this photo matters. Because something feels off. Pull back. Don't just look at her, look at the whole frame. He's there too. Far right side. On a lounger. Brian. Same place. Same moment. But not with her. Not talking. Not looking. Not even close. Just separate. Like 2 people sharing space, not a life. And maybe that doesn't mean everything. Couples have quiet moments. People drift for a bit. But this feels different. Because in less than 2 hours, according to him, she's gone. Gone forever. And this is what the before looks like. Distance. Silence. Now look closer. Her wrist. Right there. That pink Apple Watch. You see it? She wore that thing all the time. Photos, videos, years back, you'll find it. Same wrist. Same watch. It wasn't just an accessory. It was part of her routine. Wake up, put it on. Go about your day, track everything. Steps. Heart rate. Movement. Every second logged. Quietly. Constantly. And that matters. Because if she was wearing it that night, and everything says she was, then that watch didn't just disappear with her. It recorded something. Maybe the last normal moment. Maybe the moment things changed. Maybe more than anyone realizes. And if that data still exists, then somewhere, right now, there's a version of that night that doesn't rely on anyone's story. No guessing. No explaining. Just facts. But we're not there yet. Because before we get to what the watch might know, we have to understand what he says happened. And you need to hear it exactly the way he told it. Before anything starts to fall apart, real quick, before we go further, if you're here for stories like this, the ones that don't sit right, the ones where something feels off from the start, subscribe to Unseen Motive. This is where we break things down and go past the surface. Because in cases like this, the truth is usually hiding in plain sight.
And apparently Lynette went out the back with the dry bag that had the extra key in it and somehow grabbed the lanyard and took that with her and grabbed the dry bag and took that with her too as she bounced out back. Meanwhile, she's holding the throttle. Why are you letting her drive? If the weather's so bad and she barely ever drives, why are you doing that? I digress. If he's floating, he says, for better part of an hour. He says sometime around 9, I think he's at the north part of Lubbers Quarters, which is just a spit away. Then he decides to throw out the anchor and fire off his flare. But the witnesses don't say that that's what they saw. The witnesses say they saw, multiple witnesses, they saw flares going off the sailboat.
All right, now listen carefully. This is his version. No interruptions, no commentary, just what he says happened that night. They leave the dock. Short ride, nothing unusual. Dark coming in, wind picking up. He says the water started getting rough. Fast, not a slow change, not something you ease into. He describes it like it flipped. One moment manageable, next moment chaos. Waves building, 2 to 4 feet. Wind pushing hard, 18 knots, he says. Water coming over the sides of the dinghy. You're sitting low in something that small. That feels big, feels dangerous. He says they're trying to handle it, trying to stay steady. And then, it happens. Quick. Too quick. He says she loses her footing. Slips. Goes over the back. No warning. No time to react. Just gone. Into dark water. He says he reaches, but misses. The boat keeps moving. Wind pushing it forward. Current pulling her the other way. Distance opens up immediately. He says he can't see her. Can't hear her. Just black water and noise. He describes it like everything stacked against him at once. Wind. Waves. Darkness. He says there was nothing he could do. Nothing. No chance to grab her. No chance to turn around fast enough. Just gone. Like she was swallowed by it. And that's the story. A sudden accident. Bad conditions. Wrong moment. A man left alone in the dark, trying to process what just happened. That's what he wants you to believe. Sit with it. Picture it. Because if that's true, then this is a tragedy. Simple. Brutal, but simple. But if it's not, then everything changes. There's just one problem. Before we get into that, if this story is pulling you in, if you feel that tension building, hit like. Share this with someone who pays attention to details. Because what comes next? This is where things stop making sense.
Multiple witnesses saw a flare. Why didn't multiple witnesses go to the source of the flare and help flare firer? Okay, is it possible that somebody was fighting on board Soulmate and fired a flare? Whether it was Brian firing at Lynette or Lynette firing at Brian because they were in some kind of a conflagration. Maybe. And could the trajectory have gone straight instead of straight up? Did the witnesses who saw a flare see a flare skipping along the water or going at a slight elevation or even down from Soulmate into the water? I don't know that, but I hope I do find out soon what the actual trajectory of those flares was, because someone might have thought, well, that's not a distress flare. If that flare was going lateral or down, everybody knows the distress flare goes up. So this is curious. But I'm about to show you some video in a moment that suggests there was no flare that went straight up, because I did get video. I did get surveillance video from Lubbers Quarters looking straight on at Elbow Cay. I'm going to show it to you in a bit, but let me tell you folks, it covers the whole area. All the way from Tahiti Beach to White Sound Channel, you're going to see it all.
There's just one problem. The water. Same night. Same stretch. Not far from where he says it happened. There's a camera. Security footage. Quiet, fixed, doesn't care about anyone's story. Just records what's there. Pull it up. Look at the surface. No chaos. No spray. No waves stacking on each other. It's flat. Not glass, but close enough that you'd notice if something was wrong. You keep waiting for it. A gust. A swell. Anything that matches what he described. Nothing comes. Just steady water. Small movement. Normal. And maybe you think, okay, cameras can lie. Angles off. Location's a little different. Fine. So someone goes back. Same area. Same conditions, he reported. 18-knot wind. They don't guess. They test it. Put a boat in the water. Sit in it. Feel it. Because if he's right, you should see it. You should feel it. The push. The instability. That sense that things can go wrong fast. But that's not what happens. It's calm. Not manageable. Not a little rough. Calm. Under a foot. The kind of water where you can see down into it. The kind where if someone falls, you see them. You don't lose them in seconds. You don't get separated like that. The man running the test. He expected to back Brian up. He thought maybe, yeah, it could have been bad. But after sitting in that water, he changed his mind. Completely. Set it straight. He was wrong. There were no 2 to 4 foot waves. Not even close. So now you've got two versions of the same night. One from a man who was there, and one from the water itself. Only one of them holds up. Because the chaos he described, it doesn't show up on camera. It doesn't show up in testing. It doesn't show up anywhere. The chaos he described never existed. Now let's talk about the bag. Because this part doesn't sit right at all. He says when she went over, she took everything with her. Her phone, both passports, spare key, all of it packed inside a dry bag.
Here is I have a speaker about the same weight as a GoPro. I got a cell phone. I've got a passport. I've got house keys. And instead of another passport, because I only have one passport, I'm just throwing in our daily tasks book.
And somehow, in that same moment, the engine kill switch cord gets pulled too. So now the motor's dead. She's in the water with everything that matters. And he's left with nothing but a paddle. That's the picture he paints. Alright, so let's test that. Because a dry bag isn't complicated. It's built for one thing. To keep your stuff dry. And floating. You drop it in the water. It doesn't sink. It pops right back up. Bright. Obvious. Easy to spot. Someone ran that test. Loaded it the way people actually do. Not perfect, not tight, just real. Rolled it up. Dropped it in. And there it was. Floating. Not drifting fast. Not disappearing. Just sitting there on the surface like it's supposed to. Now hold that image. Because you need to understand where this happened. The Sea of Abaco. This isn't deep ocean. This isn't a place where things vanish into miles of water. Most of it is shallow. For feet in a lot of spots. 15 at the deepest. You can stand in parts of it. You can see the bottom in others. This isn't a place that swallows evidence. It's a place that exposes it. And after she disappears, they search. Coast Guard. Boats. Drones. Grid patterns. They comb through it. Water. Shoreline. Everything. Looking for anything. A bag. A phone. A passport. Something. Anything. And what do they find? Nothing. Not the dry bag. Not the phone. Not a single item, he says, went into that water. Gone. All of it. In a place where things are supposed to float. In water that's supposed to give things back. Think about that. A bright, floating bag. In shallow, clear water. Search top to bottom. And it just vanishes. No snag. No drift path. No recovery. Nothing. That's not normal. That's not bad luck. That's a problem. Because in water this shallow, things don't disappear. And then there's the text. This is where it gets strange. He's messaging with search and rescue. Back and forth. They're out there looking. Water, shoreline, everything. And in the middle of that, he asks a question. Real simple. Wants to know if the dry bag might have turned up near. A subdivision. Stop. Read that again. A subdivision. With houses. Not a shoreline. Not a cove. Not a stretch of beach. A neighborhood. Front yards. Driveways. People's homes. Now think about the path he described. She falls into the water. The bag goes with her. It floats. So where does it go? It drifts. Moves with current. Stays on the surface. Out there. In the water. It doesn't climb out. It doesn't cross land. It doesn't take a turn into someone's street. That's not how this works. Water doesn't carry things into neighborhoods. So why is that even in his head? Why is he asking about a place the water can't reach? This isn't confusion. He knows boats. Knows currents. Knows how things move out there. You don't spend years on the water and suddenly forget that. So this question, it doesn't sound random. It sounds specific. Like he's not just thinking about where something drifted, but where something ended up. Somewhere off the water. Somewhere reachable by land. And that changes everything. Because if you're asking about a subdivision, you're not thinking about the ocean anymore. You're thinking about somewhere else. Somewhere dry. So now there's a new question sitting in this case. And it's not small. Why was he thinking about land? Now listen to him. His voice. Real clip. I don't really understand the tides out here. I kind of rely on Hope Town. That's what he says. Plain. Casual. Like a guy out of his depth. Like someone just trying to make sense of a place he doesn't fully get. You hear that, you think, okay, he's not an expert. He's guessing. Trying to piece things together after something went wrong. That's the version he puts out there. Hold that, because then you read the texts. Different tone. Different person. Now he's talking about flood tide. Timing it. Flood till midnight, ebb after. He's factoring wind direction. Speed. Mapping out drift patterns. Where something would move. How far? That's not guessing. That's not someone confused. That's someone calculating. Precise. Controlled. Two versions. Same man. One where he doesn't understand the water. And one where he explains it like he lives inside it. You don't flip between those by accident. You don't forget knowledge like that in one conversation, and then use it perfectly in the next. That's not stress. That's not grief. That's choice. Because when he thinks no one's really paying attention, he downplays it. I don't understand. But when it matters, when he's talking to people searching, people deciding where to look, suddenly he knows exactly how the water works. Exactly where things should go. Exactly what makes sense. That shift, that's not small. That tells you something about how he's moving through this. He's not lacking knowledge. He's deciding when to use it. And when to hide it. He doesn't lack knowledge. He manages it. And this is where it shifts again. Because now he's not just talking. He's directing. Search teams are out there trying to make sense of a moving target. Water, wind, time. And he starts feeding them something very specific. He's breaking it down. Tides. Timing. Flow. Where the water would push. Where something would drift. What direction it should have gone if it followed the current. He's giving them a map. Not emotional. Not chaotic. Structured. Like someone who already understands the outcome they're working backward from. He points out areas. Suggests routes. Narrow zones. Places they should check. Places they shouldn't waste time on. And at first glance, it sounds helpful. It sounds like a husband trying to bring clarity to confusion. Trying to help find his wife. But then you sit with it a little longer. And you realize something. Every suggestion he makes. Every it would have gone this way. Every you should check there. It's all pulling attention in a very specific direction. Away from other possibilities. Away from anything outside the water logic he's building. And that creates tension. Because if you're right, you're helping the search. But if you're wrong, you're shaping it, limiting it, guiding it. So the question starts to form slowly here. Not loud, not obvious, just sitting underneath everything he says. Was he helping, or guiding them away? Now we need to go back. Not to the water, not to the boat, back to her, Lynette. Because everything we've been circling, everything that feels off in this story, didn't start that night. It started long before it. And the first person who breaks that silence is Rachel, her best friend. Not a detective, not law enforcement, just someone who knew her longer than most people in her life ever did. Years of phone calls, years of watching things change slowly. And what she describes is not loud. It's controlled, hidden. A life that looks normal from the outside, but isn't. She talks about the boat, not as freedom, but as isolation. No easy exit. No quick walk away. No space where things can just cool down. Just water in every direction. And when things got bad, they didn't get witnessed. They got contained. There were phone calls. Secret ones. Waited for moments. Carefully timed. When he wasn't around. When she could breathe. And what she told her friend in those moments wasn't vague. It wasn't "we're having issues." It was specific. Heavy. There was an incident. A fight. Drinking involved. And it escalated. Physically. She said he put his hands around her throat. And she described it like she was slipping out of the world for a second. Like the air just wasn't there anymore. And then he stopped. Let go. Like he chose to. And after that, there was a sentence. Something she never forgot. He looked at her and said, "I wish I had finished it, thrown you overboard." No anger in the telling. Just memory. Heavy memory. Rachel doesn't dramatize it. She doesn't need to. She just repeats it, because she has to. Because it matters. Because it changes how you hear everything else that comes after. That's not just a fight. That's a line being drawn in the worst possible way. And Lynette didn't leave. Not fully. She left for a moment. Stayed with her mother. Had space. Had time. Even started planning an exit. But she went back. And that cycle. It matters. Because it tells you something about pressure. About control. About what it means when someone feels like they can leave. But still doesn't. Rachel saw it all. The bruises. The returns. The resets that never really reset. And she understood something most people don't want to say out loud. This wasn't one moment. This was a pattern. And patterns don't stay contained forever. They go somewhere. And when you lay that history next to what happened on the water, you start to feel the weight of it differently. Because now this isn't just about what happened that night. It's about everything leading up to it. Everything she already knew. Everything she already survived. And everything she might have been trying to escape from one last time. And then there's the moment that doesn't leave you. The one sentence that just sits there, heavy. Rachel remembers it clearly. She had already seen enough. The bruises. The silence that followed certain questions. The way Lynette would go quiet when things got too close. So she says it. Not as a threat. Not for drama. Just as a friend trying to be honest. She tells her, if anything ever happens, if you disappear, if you can't speak for yourself anymore, I'm blaming him. That's it. Straight. No decoration. Just truth between two people who know each other too well. And Lynette takes that back to him. She tells her husband what her best friend said. That if she ever goes missing, she's going to point at him. Now pause there. Because this is where most people would react emotionally. Confused. Angry. Defensive. Something. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't argue it. He doesn't push back. He doesn't even really question it. He just says, that's fair. Silence. Let that sit. Because it doesn't land like a joke. It doesn't land like sarcasm. It lands like recognition. Like he understands exactly why someone would say that about him. And that's what makes it uncomfortable. Because innocent people don't usually respond that way. They don't absorb an accusation like it's already been filed away as reasonable. They don't agree with the idea that they could be the one people point to. But he did. Calm. Simple. That's fair. And Lynette hears it. She hears it and still stays. Still continues the life. Still goes back into that space. And that part is hard for people to understand from the outside. Because we want things to be obvious. We want exits to be clean. But real life doesn't always give that. It gives cycles. It gives hesitation. It gives hope mixed with fear. And Rachel, she carries that moment the hardest. Because she remembers what she felt when she said it. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't imagining. She was naming something she already saw forming. And he didn't reject it. He accepted it. That's the part that sticks. Not denial. Not outrage. Acceptance. And years later, when Lynette goes missing at sea, those three words come back with full weight. That's fair. Because suddenly, it doesn't sound casual anymore. It sounds like something he already understood before anything even happened. And before we move on, if you're still here, really following this case, really paying attention to the details most people miss, make sure you subscribe to Unseen Motive. Because this is exactly where we go deeper than headlines. And what comes next is where everything starts to narrow down. Now we get to something different. Not a story. Not a statement. Something that just records. Her Apple Watch. That pink one she never took off. The same one you've seen on her wrist in photos for years. It wasn't just time. It was everything. Heart rate, movement, steps, location, quietly tracking her life in the background while she's not thinking about it at all. And here's the part people don't always sit with long enough. It doesn't just store that data locally. It connects through the system on board that boat, through satellite internet, Starlink. So whatever that watch was doing that night, it wasn't just sitting there waiting to be found. It was sending, updating, logging, in real time, every spike in heart rate, every shift in movement, every moment she was still alive and active on that boat. All of it, somewhere. Now here's where everything tightens. Because investigators don't just have theories at this point. They have hardware. They went onto that boat. They collected evidence. They logged items. And among what they recovered, there was a watch. Just one. And that detail matters more than people realize. Because there were 2 watches on that boat. The pink one she wore every day. And another one, newer, green, never really used. So the question becomes simple, but heavy. Which one did they actually recover? The one that lived on her wrist. That tracked her. That followed her into that night. Or the one that was just sitting there untouched? Because only one of those tells a story. The other tells nothing. And right now, publicly at least, no one has confirmed it. So that gap stays open. And it matters. Because if it was the pink watch, then there's data. Real data. Not interpretation. Not memory. Data. A timeline of her final hours. Where she moved. When her heart rate changed. Whether she was active. Whether she was still fighting to stay alive. And if that exists, then the story of that night isn't just spoken anymore. It's recorded. Silently. Waiting. And that's what makes this part so unsettling. Because everything else in this case, the statements, the explanations, the contradictions, they can all be argued. But data doesn't argue. It just is. And somewhere, in a system tied to that boat, there may already be a version of the truth that no one has fully read yet. One that doesn't depend on anyone's memory. One that doesn't shift or change depending on who's telling it. Just timestamps, heartbeats, movement, and the final moments of a life. The watch doesn't forget. Now we step out of the story for a second and into what we actually know today. Not theory, not interpretation, just status. Brian Hooker, he was arrested, questioned, and then released. No charges filed. And after that, he left. Back in the United States now. Not detained. Not in custody. Just out. And that alone leaves a certain kind of silence in a case like this. Because the questions don't disappear with him. They stay. Ongoing. The investigation didn't close with that release. It didn't end. It's still active. The U.S. Coast Guard, working alongside investigators, are still treating this as an open case. Still collecting. Still reviewing. Still trying to build a timeline that actually holds together under pressure. And Lynette, still missing. No recovery. No confirmed remains. No final answer. Just absence. And absence is its own kind of weight. Because it doesn't resolve anything. It just hangs there. Day after day. Now look at where that leaves everyone. A husband who says it was an accident, now back in the U.S. Investigators still pulling at fragments of data, testimony, and timing. And a woman who hasn't been seen since that night on the water. That gap between what is said and what is proven. That's where this entire case sits. Unresolved. Still open. Still being examined piece by piece. And the longer it stays that way, the more everything in it starts to matter. Every statement. Every contradiction. Every quiet detail that didn't seem important at first. Because nothing in a case like this really disappears. It just waits to be understood differently. And right now, that's exactly where this is. Now we come back to the part that won't let go. Because all of this, every statement, every contradiction, every piece of evidence, eventually pulls you back to the same place. That boat, that night, and her wrist, the pink Apple Watch, still the center of everything, even when no one is talking about it directly. Because if it exists, if that data is still intact somewhere, then the last hours of Lynette Hooker aren't a mystery anymore. They're a record. A timeline, a set of exact moments that don't depend on memory, or emotion, or explanation. Just facts. Heart rate spikes. Movement patterns. Stops. Starts. The kind of data that tells you when a body is active, and when it isn't. And that's what makes this so heavy now. Because every other piece of this case has noise in it. Human noise. Stories that shift depending on who's telling them. Versions that don't line up. Details that change when you look at them too long. But not that. Not digital tracking. Not if it was captured. And that's the tension sitting under everything now. Because investigators don't just need answers anymore. They need confirmation. They need that one piece that either supports what was said or breaks it completely. And until that happens, this case stays exactly where it is. Open, unsettled, and heavy. Because somewhere in all of this, there's either a clean explanation, or there's a version of events that hasn't been fully faced yet. And the only thing standing between those two possibilities is data that hasn't been fully spoken for, and a night on the water that still doesn't fully make sense.